Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm gonna look out the road.
Yeah, they may well be down that far.
Yeah, because this is the big nigrescens.
It's either that or rugulosus.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of convinced rugulosus is more common here than nigrescens.
So what kind of nest system is this? Are these on a raid or are they full colony?
These are probably a raid.
And they have the nest.
Yeah. So they've got a temporary bivouac probably up on the hill someplace.
Underground.
Yeah, definitely underground.
Hey guys, nest here. Arizona face eater.
This line just kind of ends here, so we might be looking at a returning raid. Are they mostly going towards you or away from you?
They're mostly going that way.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I don't. I mean, that's just the
Check it out
common
right
name.
there. Can you? One's
Yeah.
English.
Here, he's.
Us
Here, I'll
guys
try
can
to scan
translate
back.
what that is.
Whip scorpion.
It's a what?
Whip scorpion.
Okay.
See that long tail right there?
Oh my. Which is distantly, if best, related to a scorpion. It's.
Yeah, these guys are technically insects.
No, they're not.
Oh, they aren't?
They
Oh,
are
no, they're not.
arachnids, but they're not scorpions.
They're in a completely different family,
Yeah,
aren't they?
they are. Yeah.
Come on,
That's why I
get
called
back
it an
in the hole there.
amblypygid. Cool.
There you go.
So this is a male army ant. Also called a sausage fly. And these are workers. Not sure if this and this are the same species, though. See, the size difference in them is considerable, though. And I'm told queens will be much, much bigger than that. But they don't ever fly. Army ants. So Terry or someone had mentioned that if you, there was a study done where someone found out if you dump roughly 100 army ants onto an Aphnagaster nest, the Aphnagasters will completely evacuate their colony. So we wanted to try that out. Unfortunately, we never got around to pouring it on an Aphnagaster colony, so we said, well, let's see if other ants maybe do this as well. And go.
There was so much stuff in
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm worried about. It's a little added measure.
a little hive of activity. What's going on?
Most of them are out there.
If it doesn't work this time, we'll try it again. Try dumping army ants in the hole.
Do we have more army ant booty?
They can get colonies to evacuate using army ants.
Oh, what's going on there? Under your foot.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fight going on over here.
Someone's carrying someone.
Neivamyrmex.
Yeah.
It seems like they're not properly frightened of these army ants.
Odd. Could the army ants be overly docile right now?
It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
This one just bit an army ant and is carrying it away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that one just grabbed it and
It's like, got this.
running off with it.
Tasty.
Well, the entrance is a little stuffed up.
Well, yeah, we had so much stuff in their jaw.
Would it hurt to try and unclog it?
No, it probably wouldn't hurt.
I mean,
What's the white? What's white stuff?
It's cotton.
considering they're already panicked.
Is
I'm
that
not sure it's gonna work this time. But I also think we didn't have enough army ants.
So was that the?
Get it. Where's the grasshopper? Here's the
Here.
carcass. I can't see
Yeah. So just keep collecting.
Get out of here.
Keep inhaling.
Yes.
it. What is this?
Look at that.
It's pretty damn cool.
Oh, that's gross.
There's a tunnel that continues inward.
Yeah. Good work.
That's Bruce.
Yeah, it's all your
Yeah.
son. You're welcome, people.
You spot the bivouac? You found the army?
He stepped on him.
Good job.
No, I didn't step on
No,
it. She did.
somebody stepped and then
She stepped on it, and I almost stepped on
So
it.
is this their brood or someone else's?
Probably there.
It looks like theirs.
Don't kill the queen though. If you see a queen, leave her.
Yes. Leave her.
Leave the queen.
yeah, watch out down here because they're coming towards you. No, that's what you said. Oh, that's alright.
They're trailing him. I mean, they're on him.
Yeah.
Is that your blue trout?
With
Yeah.
the-
With the little handle?
Oh, yes, that would be mine.
This one on the other side.
This is awesome. Now they're getting on my camera. And on me.
Pictures. Let's put their rocks back for them.
Okay.
I want this colony to survive.
Understandable.
Pretty damn cool.
It is.
Come on. Perfect lost though. So you're waiting on us. So let's see. Get a vial.
So we collected a bunch of the nigrescens army ants, and we basically just put them inside of a laboratory setup. It's just a simple container with fluon put around the side. As an update, I'm told you can actually water down fluon by quite a bit, like up to a 1:16 ratio, which seems a little harsh. I think I'd give it like 1:2 ratio or something at most. But anyway, if it works, it works. But when you're dealing with our army ants, these guys can form like little living walls and bridges and things like that. So you don't want to be too risky with them. But I was actually kind of taken with the whole fact that they were army ants, and I mean, I just kind of sat there in the in the lab just filming them for long, like 10-minute stretches. Unfortunately, that makes for a boring episode, so I had to go back and re-edit this whole thing. See, they're all like just whacking their antenna. I think that was because I was sort of breathing on them or near them. And we did collect a bunch of their brood, which they basically formed a bivouac around. That's just a living structure of ants. Not sure who named bivouac. I'm sure it has some meaning or something to it. But it was kind of neat. There's also some sort of a mite or something that I didn't know what to make of. It's hard to figure out, or it's hard to keep track of things with all the chaos going. Now here, this is I probably should have edited this video sooner than I did. I should have done this back in like August when I got back instead of December when I'm doing this now, because I can't quite remember the order of all these videos. You'll see later that it kind of something happens. But it was really neat because when you first put them in there, they form bivouac to sort of reestablish that they have a nest. They get all together, the brood, they put it everywhere. But then other times of the day, they will go into like swarm mode, and they just start running all around the container. And there's like barely anyone on top of the brood, and it's like all the ants are just walking around, and it's sort of like they were almost doing like a death circle, but they knew to stop, which was weird. I'm not sure what triggered that. Um, so another thing that we learned about these guys is the adults can actually consume solid food, and along with normally most ants on Earth, the larvae have to digest solid food to give it back to the workers who feed them. But that's not the case with army ants because they can all eat solid food. They don't really need the hunger of the brood is what's driving the colony to go out and forage, but in the absence of food, unfortunately, they can cannibalize their own young, which we discovered sort of happens. So army ants, they're used to basically foraging and consuming an entire ant colony, at least a fragment of a colony every day. So they need the brood of other ants coming in every day. And if you don't give that to them, they kind of just start cannibalizing. So it's one of the problems. So here you can sort of see the swarm mode. Instead of just that big clump in the middle, they've all like spread out. And what's neat is they sort of form like smaller bivouacs in the corners. And this is when we had first just given them a water supply because we realized, well, maybe they need some sort of moisture. So we did that, and they immediately started doing, just gathering around it. This might just be a reaction to the, getting moisture, or they might just be trying to get a drink. I don't know entirely what's going on here, but regardless, they formed a bivouac around that, and like they abandoned to the point where they abandoned the brood. Well, most of them. And that is their brood. Later on, we do feed them the brood of other ants, but it's not really like they don't just immediately start chopping them up or anything. I think it more or less goes into storage, and I'm kind of curious how they tell the brood of their own species apart from what they're taking in as food. Though I guess you could say that about any ant species that you boost or just give another colony's brood to that they consume. So I'm sure they know somehow, but there's sort of like this other branching fragment that they had in the corner, and another corner where they just sort of divided up the brood. I'm not sure what was the thinking behind this, but it's really neat that they did this, and they like wandered around for hours and hours on end. And I think this is where I start doing something. I was told basically if you watch an entire colony of ants, you'll go, wow, look how smart they are. But if you just watch an individual ant for long enough, you'll suddenly realize, wow, look how dumb they are. It's kind of like they're intelligent together as a colony, and they become more intelligent the larger the colony is because they're shared brain cells and everything, and you'll start seeing different behaviors develop that may not have been there when there were only a few ants. But when you follow a single ant around doing its thing, you start to sort of question, it's like, well, you're not really intelligent at all. It's just and the looking intelligent is a result of just everyone trying to do a single job. I'm sure architects actually get the yeah, cities get the exact same effect happening. If you look at the structures that like a human city would build, you're like, wow, look at what that society has achieved. And then you look at the individual people running it, and you just you know, I'm sure not all of them. Some of them look smarter than others, but not everyone that you would expect. So maybe I'm gonna say like a half hour after they formed that bivouac around the water supply, they started moving the brood inside there. But there was I'm not sure what they were, what the logic was. If ants can form a waterproof barrier with ants, I guess they could form some sort of a net as long as it didn't break the surface, the way fire ants do with when they form a living raft. So talking about this colony in the wild a little bit, there was like sort of a ditch right next to where we parked the van of all things, and there's a series of rocks just all over. Like I'm not sure if they were put there on purpose, but um, I think those rocks may have been put there on purpose, just considering the location we were at has like actual graves, like the old type that were just stacks of rocks. But that was not the case here. I believe this was put in as like a drainage ditch kind of thing to stop erosion for parking issues. Unfortunately, we did stumble across some people who had. Well, we didn't stumble across people, but it was clear that some people had tried to make like little fire circles, and they didn't realize the rocks they were using were actually from the someone's grave. Not that there was like a headstone and marking, so and so died here, or anything like that. It was just, you just find these structures of rocks. But anyway, the ants had nested in a bunch of rocks, not to someone's graves, to a ditch or something. But it was neat because it took up maybe, I mean, we didn't find the end of it. We flipped over maybe 25 stones. Your average something you'd see in someone's garden, like a garden border kind of thing. Two hands to lift kind of stone. Not bigger than a cinder block, though. None of them seemed to be that big, but they were nested underneath all of them, and there were little. It wasn't really a tunnel or a gallery kind of thing. It was more like they had just pushed the soil out of the way to enter there, and they had brewed underneath all of these. Pretty much every stone that we lifted up. And Gordon had said that the colony probably extends several feet into the dirt. So had I started, digging my little shovel around there, I probably would have been covered in ants when it spilled out. They sort of formed a midden pile over in the next to the bivouac, not too far from where the nest was, but it's not like they had a whole lot of room to expand. And one of the things that they had talked about was no one really knows how the army ants locate their food, or it was something to do with that. Basically, they don't seem to be any chemical cues or anything like that. They just kind of start to swarm, and it's more like they just kind of meander, and then when one of them bumps into another ant colony, they turn around and lay down pheromone and say, "All right, everyone, come this way," and they'll all just start following that one. And I would love to have set something up like that in the lab just to kind of test that out, kind of to figure out if that was the case there. So on the following day, they had consumed all of their own brood. Unfortunately, we didn't feed them, so we said, well, we better feed them. And they were still in swarm mode. Like, this is how we found them the morning before. And they were, like, this is them swarming, going nuts. But they don't really know where to go, and I feel like they realize they're kind of stuck in the same area because they have ants bumping one way or the other. Like, the whole swarm isn't going one direction. So we finally get the idea, well, let's just dump this out here. And they kind of go nuts, more so from the fact they could sense that someone's hand had been around, or someone breathed on them. And they kind of, like, some of them find the brood and are interested in it. Others, though, don't seem to care about the brood at all, and I think that's just because they're more in a panic mode. Like, they're just walking around. Yeah. Another thought on that is maybe they don't have a nest to return it to. But then they moved over to the second tube that we gave them. And I see some of them are actually returning the brood there that they caught, so they somehow localize where they should go and make a nest. Or a bivouac. And abandon other structures, which was neat. So this little tiny hole in the ground, sorry, all sorts of army ants are living inside of this.